Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Conscious Living Podcast, where we are here to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. Thank you so much for being one of the people that cares about creating a better world for all of us to thrive and just make sense of this crazy world that we're in. And I am so excited to bring to the Conscious Living Podcast today a colleague and very fascinating businesswoman, Dr. Sabine Charles. Dr. Charles is from New York. She's someone who I've recently come upon her work, and I'm really taken with who she is and her experience. She's got over 15 years of experience and currently serves as the CEO of Charles Financial Strategies and the TAPA Institute. Her expertise is in things like internal controls, business risk, fraud investigations, operational auditing. But she also has an extensive career in leadership, working with people around why emotional intelligence is critical at the leadership interface. Not only that, Dr. Sabine Charles speaks 5 languages, and she also works with people to help them learn how to pass any kind of certification exam. One of the most fascinating people that I've had the just delightful privilege of talking with, and I know you're going to enjoy today's conversation. Dr. Sabine Charles, welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast. Do you want to say a little bit more about yourself, help people get to know you a bit?
Oh, yes. Well, thank you, first of all, thank you for having me. So, yes, I'm just listening to the bio. I'm just like, okay, there is a connection. There is a connection.
There's a connection here.
So, the emotional intelligence piece in leadership is so critical for auditors, specifically in the accounting world and technology, because we are always, when we're presenting issues, we have to be aware of how we're presenting it, so that our colleagues, our clients will be able to accept and implement our recommendations.
Yeah.
So understanding the person in front of us is so important in business and especially in the field of accounting and auditing.
Well, you're saying especially in the field of accounting and auditing, because that's where you have your experience and expertise. But let me speak from a coaching perspective. If coaches don't have emotional intelligence and don't have the capacity to understand the person in front of them, or understand, how my own as the coach, emotional world will impact, if I'm coming on too strong, if I'm going to come in there and tell this coaching client they need to do it this way, emotional intelligence is so critical. Or then, let's go to the field of education. If an educator stands up in front of the room or in front of their one-on-one mentee and they're not reading them right, maybe they're working cross-culturally, cross-racially, and they're not sensitive to understanding that this person is going to have a different worldview. I would say that emotional intelligence and leadership is critical at every interface, every career that we're talking about, and not only in leadership. I think about in government, in politics, in education, and oh, hey, by the way, what about in our family life as well?
Exactly. Even that's just exact in raising children. At the end of the day, emotional intelligence is critical to connect with people in your lives. And I think at the end of the day, we all need to become a little bit more intelligent, especially in the way the world is moving
Right?
around us. We
Yeah.
all have to just take a step back. And I believe that we have to take a step back inside. First, we have to figure out our mindset.
Okay.
Our mindset is where everything begins. If we're not well within ourselves, then how can we be well with others?
So, how do people figure out their mindset? That's a great phrase. Figure out your mindset. What are the elements of that?
Well, first, I think we need to, I meditate twice a day.
Wow.
Meditation is critical, going inside, because I believe that we have the answers within us.
Yeah.
And we just have to listen. That inner voice is powerful if you listen to it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
once you go inside, and some people will use religion, prayer, whatever you want to use, it doesn't really matter. But taking that moment for you to figure out who you are, what's your purpose, what's your core value.
Yeah,
Your values may be different than mine, not to say it's better or worse, but we have to just have things and do things that resonate with our core values. Once you really figure that out and understand what it is, then you can move forward. Then you could really understand with purpose how you could influence or interact with individuals who may not necessarily be like you.
absolutely. I'm so curious, Dr. Charles, if you don't mind me asking, how did you end up meditating twice a day? Or do you practice transcendental meditation? I know.
Yes, I do TM.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. When you said twice a day, I was like, oh, she's a TM practitioner.
Yes, yes.
So I'm just curious if you don't mind sharing with our listeners, how did you've got an intense background, international business, international in banking and finance, and, jet setting all over the world, the work that you've done doesn't exactly paint the profile of someone who I would picture, sitting in meditation twice a day. Oh, by the way, for 20 minutes. That's a really important practice. So do you mind sharing a little bit about how you got there and then what it offers to you into your life and your success?
Okay, so the first thing is that the way I got into all of this is when the market crashed
Yeah,
the second time in the
okay.
2000,
18.
2018, and
Yeah.
when Lehman Brothers just kind of
Right,
imploded.
right, right.
And so that was 2011, around that time.
Okay.
And I was in banking. I was an investment banker. And I had some of my colleagues just really wanting to kill themselves because their portfolios just went south. And I realized, is this life? Is this the purpose? I was making money. I was getting bonuses. And I said, well, let me try to look and see and find jobs. So I went around, I found a job in the academic world, but they wanted me to get a certification. And I said, no biggie. So at that time, I was a single parent. And so single parent, and I said, what's an exam? I could just do this. The pressure of having to pass the exam within a year and the fear that I was going to be homeless
Right.
if I didn't pass the exam, because then I was like, oh, my kids are going to be taken away from me, caused me to overreact and stress out to the point where I took the exam so many times, I failed. I kept failing.
Wow.
I was rushed to the hospital. I had a neck problem. I mean, I was hyperventilating. I was just like, what is going on? I studied for this test. And then I was like, what's going, and I decided to take another test just to kind of see. I'm an auditor. We like to kind of weigh things out. I took the other test. I passed it. So then I'm like, what is wrong with this specific test? And I kept bouncing. That's why I have so many certifications. I was
Right.
experimenting on myself to really understand what was going on. I went to a hypnotist and I just went to so many type of things. Once I cracked the code, I decided to start a business. And that's where I started TAPA Institute to help people. And I came up with a technique called the one-liners. It's not a joke, but it is called the one-liners, where I help people really figure out short sentences so that they can remember and recall information quicker during exam time.
Wow.
And that's how I got into this. So now I decided to become a certified hypnotist.
Wait, is that how you passed? Did you pass that exam?
Yes, I passed it,
That's you use that.
and X amount of more. Yes.
Right, right, right. I saw your list of certifications longer than I've ever seen and all the people I've ever interviewed.
So I passed, and then I passed that certification. I opened up the business, and now I help thousands of people to pass exams.
Wow. All right. So that's fascinating to me that you were able to crack that code. But go back to so you're in the hospital, you've got the neck thing, the kids are going to be homeless, you're going to be homeless. How did that lead you to TM and being a meditator?
So, so then now I started thinking, all right, well, what is going on with me? So again, that within. And so I was looking around and I said, let me begin to meditate and see how I feel. Then I started meditating, and that's when ideas came, health came. I mean, it was just an opening to so I had a situation of not passing, and I decided to really try to work on it. Then I realized that the answer is really in Sabine. And so I sit down and I ended up doing meditation. I ended up getting certified in hypnosis to help other people to understand the subconscious piece of it. Then I start getting into more and more into that. I started meditating. When I was helping people, I realized there were a lot of different emotions that were coming out of them failing exams, same emotions I felt. And I was so fascinated by it. Intelligent people just breaking down in front of me because they failed an exam. And I'm like, it's just an exam. But then I realized, no, it's not just an exam.
It was deeper than that, right? Into your
Deeper.
identity and failure and all of that. Yeah.
And then I moved into emotional intelligence
Okay.
to really understand the emotions connected with certification. That's what my dissertation was about. Really figuring out emotional intelligence for accountants. So that's my focal point. Of course, that's the where I started, but this is something that could be used just like you mentioned for anything and everything we do. So
Yeah.
understanding self, then understanding how to navigate through society can help you become a practitioner, an expert
Yeah.
in what you do.
Beautiful. I love that. So starting with mindset,
Mhm.
what do you say are the pillars of emotional intelligence for our listeners to really think about themselves and how emotionally intelligent perhaps they are or are not? So what are the pillars of emotional intelligence?
Well, there are a few. Well, I'm not going to go into the technical pieces, but there's the first thing I think we need to really focus on is self awareness. Right? It goes down back to that mindset and how setting up goals, really appreciating what you do.
Hmm.
Sometimes taking a step back and saying, you know what, I'm not so bad. I'm actually excellent. It's not okay. I'm doing very well. I woke up, I'm pleasant. First thing you should say, and not to get into the religious piece of it,
Yeah.
but thank God I'm awake.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you,
God I'm
God, for another
alive.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. Just being appreciative and grateful for every moment that you have.
Yeah.
That's
Huge.
the first piece. And aware of your emotions. You may not wake up feeling great, but
Yep.
that's okay.
Yep.
There isn't good emotions or bad emotions. They're just emotions.
Yeah.
And we have to really figure out how to manage that. So
Hmm.
there are so I think that's the first one that you need to really figure out. Like, why are we, where am I? It's the where. Where am I? And not judging like, oh, I should be here, right? But where
Yes.
am I right now? And accepting it because you shared something with me earlier. And at the end of off camera, and you know what? Sometimes we just have to accept and let it go, and just just take that journey.
Yeah. So mindset, self-awareness, gratitude, and then acceptance. These are all
Exactly.
the elements and the pillars. Acceptance is such a powerful, powerful emotion or capacity for leaders or for anyone in life, really. Accepting the way things are. I love it. In the 12-step meetings, they use the serenity prayer
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
accepting the way things are, figuring out what things you can change or impact and what things you can't, and really leaning into the things that you cannot change or impact, and then having the courage, the strength, the clarity to take action on the areas that you can have an impact. I think that's that, that to me is one of the pillars of emotional intelligence. Do you have a thought
Yeah.
about
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, we have to be aware of our environment.
what do you mean?
Well, we have to be around people who can help you at least be in your best at your best self, so you could really thrive. Because your environment plays so much in our lives. If we don't surround ourselves with, and I don't want to say good people, but people who support you,
Yeah. Yeah.
then that's something. So that could really pull away from your energy.
Yeah. I call it high vibe people, being around high vibe people,
Yeah.
who are supportive and caring and lighthearted and interested. But I'm sure you go into workplaces, Sabine, where that's not the case, So what do you say for people who want to be emotionally intelligent, practice the fundamentals of emotional intelligence, but they're in, shall we say, somewhat of a toxic work environment? What's your experience with that?
Take yourself out.
Yeah, that's what I say too. I say the
Take yourself
exact same
out.
thing. I had a listener I was doing a training for a company. And I said that, and someone put in the chat, like, that's such a privileged statement for you to say that. Not everybody can just quit their job. And I was like,
Well, you have to work towards it. See, I'm an auditor, so we like plan B, C, and D. Okay, so plan it.
yeah,
Plan it. You don't just say, I quit, drop the mic.
right.
You need to work towards it and figure out how you could leave
Yeah.
and have a cushion. Because I didn't have a cushion. I'm first generation American. I learned English when I was 7.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. What country are your parents from?
From Haiti.
From Haiti. Wow.
Mhm. So my father's a political asylum. He was a judge in Haiti, and judges and dictatorships don't work.
That doesn't go well. Yeah.
And so he came here in the 70s as a man who speaks 3 languages. They did not give him a chance. They told him he found a job as a bellman in a hotel. So he taught us that you should not connect your job with who you are.
Yeah, with your self-worth. Yeah.
Because you could do whatever you need to do to survive, but your self-worth is so important. And that's what I mean. So to your question, get out. Get out, or just stay your ground, but understand there's no correlation between the two.
Yeah. 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 You are not your job. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I saw when at the time when people were deciding to do bad things to themselves during the crash. I
Yeah.
realized, like, wait a minute, this is not a healthy environment.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've actually had to do this.
Right.
So what was your path? You said you looked into becoming a hypnotherapist, but you didn't actually do that professionally, right?
Well, I actually I'm a certified hypnotist. I do I am a hypnotist.
But do you offer that service
Yes,
professionally? You do.
offers
Oh,
it.
okay.
So TAPA Institute has 2 arms. We
Okay.
do training, and we teach people how to learn,
Okay.
and then we do hypnotherapy. So that combination is how we help 90% of our clients pass their exams. So we use hypnotherapy for helping for stress management, memory recall, so that they're in their zone when they're at so I teach them how to do self-hypnosis.
Self-hypnosis. Yeah.
So when they're at the exam, because the exam is 4 hours long, and I'm specifically talking about the CPA exam, and there are 4 parts, 4 hours each,
Wow.
that they're sitting in front of a computer and they have to be on. So that's why between each testlet, I help them learn how to self-hypnotize so that they're back in the zone. So that the true answer, their true self, is being aware, appearing in front of the screen and taking the exam.
Fascinated with this. So what does this self-hypnosis actually do neurologically? Do you have an understanding of that, what the neurological process is and how the brain shifts?
Well, so what happens is that now, well, the conscious mind, I think the conscious mind is there. They call it the monkey mind in some of the
Yeah,
books.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like that, right? So that piece of that mindset is
Mind
really,
chatter. Yeah.
yeah, it's trying to really help you survive,
Yes, right.
right? And then within that subconscious level is where the information lies. You see, I mean, a lot of you've seen these pictures where you have the ice,
Oh, the iceberg.
the iceberg, and then you just see the tip of the iceberg, and then you see the whole depth of what's underneath. But nowadays it's melting. But anyway,
But that's another podcast.
that's another conversation. There is where I want my clients to be, at least being able to tap into that information. So during my time with me, I am actually giving them affirmations. Well, my one-liners are kind of like affirmations, where
Okay,
I'm
so give me
building
an
new neural
example.
pathways.
What would some
So
of them be?
so they get a question incorrect, okay? They get a question incorrect. Then I help them figure out, why is the right answer the right answer? What's the core concept?
Okay.
Once they figure out the core concept, then they write a one-liner to a loved one.
Really?
Mhm. To a
Wait,
loved
like,
one.
give me an example of what would be a one-liner to a loved one? I'm so
So,
confused right now.
so then let me explain. So then they're going to have to write a one-liner to a loved one. So I have them start connecting something that's stressful to someone that they care about. So
Okay.
then now they'll be able and willing to explain to a loved one in a clear language
What
of
the concept is that they're
what's the
learning.
concept that they
Okay.
did not learn.
Okay.
So then that's one piece. Okay. So they write this one liner and they're writing it to a loved one. Now, this one liner, after I review it, then they repeat it twice a day, like a mantra. So
Wow.
we're building new neural pathways so that when they see that stem, it automatically connects to that fact pattern.
Wow.
So the one-liner concept is combining the things that I've learned throughout my life and helping people pass and really understand who their true self. They get a lot of money on once they pass the exam. Some of them get $50,000 bonus for passing this exam. So not
Wow.
only I'm helping them move forward in their careers, but also helping them understand themselves and communicating in a way that actually makes them better leaders.
That is huge that you've cracked that code. Have you written it up in a book?
Yes, actually, I
Okay.
have a book called Cracking the Code for
Okay.
Certification Excellence, a certification success. And then I also have another book called Leadership MeQ.
Oh, right. So yeah, I wanted to
Yes,
talk a little bit more about that. I know we're kind of going back and forth here, but
yes,
let's go back over to the leadership piece because I do want to
yes.
hear you talk about leadership MeQ, how you developed it, what it is. So do we mind hopping back over there to that
Sure,
piece?
sure, sure. So Leadership MeQ, I know we have a lot to, it's like,
We're going all over the place. Yeah.
so Leadership MeQ started out, like I was saying, when I was looking at my clients and figuring out, okay, there is more underneath the surface because there's a lot of emotions attached to this exam. And I said, well, is leadership, what's the premise? Can you be a great leader? Because a lot of the big four accounting firms promote people based on passing the CPA exam.
Oh, wow.
You become a manager if you pass the CPA exam. But is that a criteria that should be used
Right.
for people when you're becoming a manager and managing multiple projects, maybe for the on the technical side, but you have teams of people. So a lot of companies, and I'm not just picking on the big four, but a lot of companies use certification for screening
Mm.
and for them to move up the corporate ladder. Is that the right criteria? Is it? And so that was my question. And I saw that people were just, I got to pass the CPA because I got to be a partner, I got to be manager. And I'm thinking, well, you're going to need more than that. So my dissertation was around, okay, is there certificate people who pass the CPA exam, do they have, what kind of leadership style do they have? Do they possess? And is there an emotional intelligence component to it? And how high are we?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we did men and women as well. because and in accounting, I mean, now they have a lot more women, but the people who are in the higher levels in the accounting world are men.
Wow.
So then so now that's how I started on my work and my journey in getting my doctorate. So really understanding emotional intelligence, leadership traits for CPAs.
Okay.
And
Wow.
then I started looking and I said, okay, now I opened up that's how you and I met, right? I started looking at experts in the field, understanding what this means, because I am discovering it myself right now, but there's a plethora of information out there. So I read books and I started doing a lot more research supposed to be beyond my paper. And I started realizing there's a correlation. There's a correlation. 92% of executives have a high level of emotional intelligence.
Wow.
So, which means that it's not only the technical skills that make people effective and powerful and successful, it's the ability to connect with others. And now with the change in technology, how do we stay connected? We used to just meet someone and say, I vibe with this person.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you meet them in the supermarket or however, and that's how business deals are made on the golf courses. COVID changed everything. How do we vibe? And so now how do we connect? Because we're human beings and we wanted AI, chat GPT, all of that stuff is making our lives easier. Yes, I get it. But then at the end of the day, we have to connect with people.
Right.
And so now this emotional intelligence piece, when we have companies that have virtual offices
Right.
all over, that people are not meeting and connecting. And so now I'm really interested and I'm now really thinking about how is that changing and how do we continue to develop that connection with others, even in an environment of technology.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Yeah, that emotion. I was actually surprised to hear you say that 92% of the leaders, at least in accounting, have high emotional intelligence.
Well, not in accounting, in general. This is
In general. Okay,
yes,
that is in
yes,
general.
right.
That
Statistics.
surprises me. I mean, that's not anecdotally, that's kind of not what I hear, but I guess I get called in to consult to companies where their leaders don't have, you know, don't have high emotional intelligence.
But you know what? That's the point. They realize how important it
How
is.
important it is. Yeah.
And so the people who are considered successful do have a high level of emotional intelligence. So they realize in the higher levels, if you look at a company, the higher levels understand what we're talking about. But
Absolutely.
then if you start looking at middle management and the lower middle management, that is lost in translation. And I think we are really focused on getting the master's, getting the MBA from the Ivy League schools, and we are not necessarily teaching individuals to better understand individuals.
Well, to master themselves, right? So that they
Exactly.
can then relate with and understand other people. I was a therapist for 30 years.
Yes, I know. Yes.
Yeah. So, I don't know much. I can't do accounting. I can't do auditing, but I know human beings like the back of my hand. And that makes my career very versatile. And I've been able to do extraordinarily interesting things all around the world because of this one thing. I understand human beings.
You were on TED. I've seen your TED talk,
Oh,
right?
thank
So,
you.
so I mean, you, your ability to understand the mindset, understand consciousness, understanding empowerment is your gift.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. It
Your
absolutely is
gift.
power. Wow. Sabine, it's just delightful to bring you to this stage, to get to know you. I am in awe of the breadth and depth of your knowledge and expertise. I mean, what you've accomplished is really quite extraordinary. So I'm really grateful. I hope you'll come back and maybe we'll do another segment. Really glad your admin found me for you. Even though we had no idea who each other are, I have the feeling we will be fast friends. So thank you so much for being here with us. If people want to reach out, hear more about your work with certification exams, hypnotherapy, stress management with that, or leadership work in organizations, how can they reach you?
Well, they can reach me on my website, drsabinecharles.com.
There you go. That's pretty easy to find. You have been a delight today. Thank you for shining your light with us.
Thank you for having me.